I don't know, Lee. I was a young boy in 2001, but since then I have looked it up. 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden was from Saudi Arabia. As far as I know, Al Qaeda and the plotting of this 9/11 attack was not exclusively in Afghanistan. I do know that a couple years ago, Trump to his people said, "Oh, maybe we should try to stay there. There's $1 trillion in rare minerals there." So, can you tell everybody, since CNN's leaving this out, the legacy of Afghanistan? Did we spread democracy there, and how much did it cost us?
Yeah, we bombed a lot of democracy into them. I think that's always the most effective way to spread democracy is with bombs. Some of the numbers that are given by our own Pentagon, I believe they've stopped giving these out under Trump. It stopped, but the final year Obama was in office, 26,000 munitions dropped by our military. The first year Trump was in office, 40,000 munitions dropped. So just an insane amount of bombing and destruction that has gone on across Afghanistan and a few other countries. But yeah, you get into the long history of it, and Afghanistan had a socialist revolution. A government whose stated goal was to bring equality to everybody, education to everybody, and poverty. And we helped make sure to crush that, because that is very dangerous when people start getting equality and feeding the hungry and that type of thing. It's a mess for us. So we helped fund far right-wing nut jobs that became the Taliban and became Al Qaeda. And we helped create that. They brought down the socialist government in Afghanistan, took over for many years. And then we went in to get rid of them. And now we've replaced the Taliban with the Taliban yet again here. And for those people who want to act like, look, we're doing such a noble thing, they've got these photos of the soldier on Newsweek or whatever holding the baby. And it's like, yes, save that baby. I'm not saying leave the baby crying on the ground. However, celebrating it like this is some impressive thing we've done is like, thanking Jeffrey Dahmer for cleaning up the bodies before he leaves. That's really good of you, because that would have been a mess. Thank you. You're a hero. It's what's happened over the past 20 years is totally revolting and disgusting and murderous and a crime against humanity. And celebrating any of it right now is insane.
Yeah, and I also think, obviously with Iraq, I mean, this was predetermined. Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, they all had a boner for Iraq long before W came in. They wanted to find some way to go into Iraq again. But with Afghanistan, it's not like we didn't have, any interest in Afghanistan, like dating back to the 70s when we actually created bin Laden by funding him. And I always mispronounce it, by the Mujahideen. Yeah, I mean, pre 9/11. America was itching to find a way into Afghanistan.
People can go back and look up I think it was the cover of the New York Times where bin Laden's featured as a hero in Afghanistan. Like literally, he's a photo of him. Look at Afghanistan's freedom fighter is basically what it says. That's how much we were in bed with bin Laden and Al Qaeda. I mean, we continue to do this stuff. We're funding Al Qaeda to this day. We're funding Al Qaeda offshoots like Al Nusra in Syria. So we're still doing this type of garbage, type of insanity. Probably the best book on it is Management of Savagery by Max Blumenthal, where we think that, by funding these rebels, they're going to, they're moderate rebels, and then they take over a town and they start executing people in the streets. And we go, wow, I didn't see that coming. But of course, it's obvious that that's what's going to happen. But another thing you won't get from the mainstream media when everyone says this is a complete catastrophe, it is by the rubric that you or I would use as to what is success, as to what is a noble venture, a just venture. But in terms of what our ruling elite have gone for, this actually was a success. It achieved multiple aims. Obviously going back to the 70s, destroyed the socialist government in Afghanistan, got the Soviet Union out of there. But more importantly, the past 20 years, it has funneled trillions of dollars into the hands of weapons contractors, into the hands of our country's ruling elite. And so it has just been a huge success on that front. it also has made sure that Afghanistan, along with Iraq, Syria, Libya, could not become strong and successful countries that could threaten us in any way, or Israel. Our goal was largely to create a failed state or a puppet government, and we've done pretty close to that in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya. So,
Well, what's interesting, I want to read this, if you could pull it up, Colin. So in 2010, American officials estimated that Afghanistan had untapped mineral deposits worth nearly 1 trillion, estimate that was widely disputed at the time and has certainly fallen since, given the eroding price of commodities. But the 1 trillion figure is circulating again inside the White House. This was written when Trump was president. So opium, 1 trillion in rare minerals. Obviously, honestly, what we've been doing in Syria, many would say is really about a pipeline or about geopolitical oil superiority. Is there a reason this is never discussed in the corporate media? Like what Afghanistan possesses that we might
well,
like?
the one time they did discuss it was like a week ago. CNN came out with the headline that everyone was passing around that said the Taliban sits on top of trillions of dollars of resources or minerals or something that the world desperately needs. So if you rephrase that headline, it is the government of Afghanistan sits atop trillions of dollars of the resources of Afghanistan. Oh my God, the horror. As if we just own anything that's underneath Afghanistan. I mean, it's so pathetically laughable. Obviously, those resources and things in these countries, in Syria, you saw the way we continue to defend the oil grounds in Syria. Trump outwardly said, he often accidentally said the quiet part loud, outwardly said that we are defending the oil in Syria. We're there to defend the oil. So those things are important. I think on the list, I mean, oil is not as important as it used to be. Also, the U.S. with the horrific fracking has, we have far more oil to our name now than we used to. And so it's not as important. It is a thing that obviously we steal or try to steal. The pipelines obviously are important to us. But I think if you didn't have the combination of socialist governments or governments that are outside of our central banking system, another aspect that is almost never talked about. If you didn't have those aspects, I don't think we would be doing nearly this level of invading and attacking and bombing. Every government, Syria, Iraq, Libya, that we have totally destroyed and uprooted has been outside of our central banking. Meaning we don't have as much control over them economically. Gaddafi was talking about starting the gold standard for Africa, and that very much made us nervous. The idea that all of Africa could potentially end up outside of our central banking tentacles, and so we went in there and bayoneted Gaddafi and turned Libya into open slave markets and warlords competing for territory. And we called that a success. And we said, we're here for human rights.
Right. Well, one thing that really fucking pissed me off, I'm sure if you saw it, you'd feel the same way. Andrea Mitchell, Mrs. Alan Greenspan, she was very, very upset when this all started, almost crying on MSNBC, saying, we have a moral responsibility to these Afghan women. Listen, I feel bad. I mean, it's terrible that there is oppression of women, of children all over the world. I would tell you Yemen, Somalia, many other countries. But I said, when's the last fucking time Andrea Mitchell said we have a moral responsibility to the people of Flint, Michigan, or the indigenous people of North Dakota, or Minneapolis who have pipelines going through their land, or Amazon workers pissing in bottles and shitting in cars? I mean, these warmongers on TV can care less about America. And I'm not an America First Trumper or anything, but like, they don't care at all about the exploitation, oppression of American women or workers, because essentially their parent companies are tied to, government, even in some cases, the military industrial complex. So you have people like Andrea Mitchell and these other anchors freaking out about, the suffering of Afghanistan. What about the suffering that they've caused here?
Yeah. They only care about women and children or those who are suffering when it serves the propaganda purposes of the empire. There is no other moment when they sit there and go, "Oh my God, the children." I mean, how often are they going, "Oh my God, the women," for Saudi Arabia, one of our greatest allies, where women couldn't drive until a year ago or whatever. There's no respect for Yemen. Yeah, like you said, the women and children there. But even not just the American, obviously the American people who are suffering suffer from our healthcare system. But in Afghanistan, we've been bombing women and children for 20 years, and you didn't see any concern coming from these same entities, these same government mouthpieces. I don't recall a single CNN report that said, and these are our military's own numbers, leaked mainly by Daniel Hale, who's now in prison for it. Our military's own numbers are that over 90% of those killed by our drones are innocent civilians, women and children, those who are suffering, those who are elderly, those who are infirm. We're blowing them up left and right. And there was no concern. There was no moment that CNN was like, "Oh dear God, the children."